energy to close up on the Asaase Breakfast Show. And remember, the good energy is bringing you Goil Super XP, the ideal choice for most vehicles. Now, the Goil Super XP is flowing wah at filling stations across the country. So just go in, fuel up, and you too can enjoy the smooth ride that comes with Goil Super XP and all its benefits. Goil Super XP is quality and gives you the correct choice when you're buying fuel any day of the week. Why? Because it's fortified with a special additive that gives long life to your engine, makes your engine perform to the max, helps you use as little fuel as possible, and guess what? It's suitable for most vehicles. So as you're riding along, look out for Goil stations where you see the Goil Super XP sign and go in and fuel up your vehicle. Goil Super XP, wo filia. Huh? Wube fili. Goil, good energy. Yena Yedia. Now on what's going on, our Health Today segment, because as our host was saying earlier on, no Thursday is complete without our discussion about matters to do with health, matters to do with your well-being, and what we can do to give you advice about how to improve your general circumstances in life. Yesterday being World Autism Awareness Day, WAD, a day marked every 2nd of April since 2007. And serving as a global platform to raise awareness of the conditions and challenges faced by people with autism spectrum disorder, ASD, what most people refer to as being autistic, but really we mean about people who are living with autism. And there are many people who could tell you that there are a lot of us who are somewhere on the autism spectrum or other. I know I am, definitely. And joining us, of course, as usual, Dr. Teddy Totime, consultant neurosurgeon, who very kindly has brought in a gentleman who knows whereof he speaks. Isiama Kofo is the father, the proud father of a young woman. I don't think we can call her a child any longer, with autism. And I'd love to say good morning to you both, gentleman and doctor.
Good morning. Good morning.
And very lovely to see you in the studio, especially Isiama, because we've met your wife, of course, who came into the studio to tell us about her experience with Nanaya, who is, of course, a superstar on social media. But we'll come to Dr. Teddy in a moment to put the context of World Autism Awareness Day. But I wanted to ask you, as man to somebody who you have now raised through autism, she's now a young woman, she's a working woman. First of all, how did you actually find out that that was the specific challenge that Nanaya was facing?
Thank you. I think we had a Peace Corps friend who visited us, and I would say about 30 minutes of interacting with us and our daughter. She asked us, "Is that how your child is?" And we asked what is wrong with her. He said she's showing signs of autism.
How old was Nanaya then?
I would say around 3 years. Then we asked what is that, because I had not heard of it before.
You literally had never heard of autism before? No.
So she came to Oxford Street. That time internet was not that common. She came and printed materials and came and gave us to read. I read through and I said, no, this one I reject it. No. So we did not pay attention.
Can't be my child.
Yeah, we did not pay attention. Then she was showing this, the usual signs. But what got us worried was the fact that she was losing a little vocabulary she was having.
Right.
Then a friend who was also having a similar challenge, came to us and said, oh, she has had a breakthrough from one Mr. Emehia. He was a speech pathologist at opposite Cocoa Clinic. So we rushed there. When we got there, after interacting with our daughter, she said, oh, she's showing signs of, then I take the word, autism. He said, oh, you have heard of it before? I said, yes. And he said, yeah, it seems, she's showing signs of autism. But go and see one lady, that is the name Queer Usu of our 2. And let her also have a second look. We went and she confirmed.
Awawa 2 being a campaigning group for children.
No, it's also a center that manages persons or children with autism.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was very, very early days, because you're describing a situation where not only as parents of a child who may have been facing developmental challenges, but it seems even generally in society at large, including in the medical fraternity, autism wasn't that well known a condition. People didn't really understand it. You had to get sent to somebody with very specialized services who would be able to confirm.
Exactly.
But before that initial suggestion by the Peace Corps worker there, had you noticed that there were developmental challenges that your daughter was beginning to show signs of?
Oh yes, we saw some signs. She will, form a fist and try to look at it. From the corner of the eye.
Right.
She will sometimes, block the ears with her fingers. Will sometimes cover the face with his hands. And we're having sleep disorder. And those are, she will spin. She will spin and will not fall dizzy.
Just turning on the spot. Just turning on the spot. But the blocking of the ears, presumably because she's sensitive to loud sounds.
Exactly.
And the covering of her eyes.
We later got to know the meaning of all this.
Sure, but you wouldn't
at that
know.
time, I didn't know.
And a child can't explain to you, presumably. The covering of her eyes, presumably sensitivity to light, which we now know, because we've progressed a little bit in our own awareness, that those are sometimes quite common signs of autism. Dr. Teddy, if I could turn to you and ask, because very often people think of autism as a kind of mental health condition. Now, I understand it's not a mental health condition. It's a neurodevelopmental problem. It's to do with the way the brain forms. From research done either here in Ghana or generally internationally speaking, are doctors and researchers any closer to understanding what the particular things are that affect the way a child's brain develops in the womb, presumably, that make them susceptible to autism spectrum disorder?
We have no idea.
We are in the dark, literally.
We're still in the dark.
Oh, no.
So, autism, considering the fact that it is such a common disorder, it's 1 in 100, right? So 1 in 100 people will show the, observed symptoms of this disorder at one point or the other.
1% is a big proportion.
Right.
Yeah.
So for a condition that is 1 in 100, right? We do not know what causes it. We know some risk factors, but we do not know what causes it. There's no cure, so we can only, put in measures that manage it. And, as we understand it more and more, we are finding a way to dissociate it from a mental health challenge, right? And you stated it properly, because it's neurodevelopmental. That is the reason why it is usually diagnosed in children, because it has something to do with the networks that are being developed as the child develops, as the child grows. So the typical age of diagnosis would be between 18 and 24 months, which means that a lot of the diagnosis has to be made by pediatricians or, you know, carers who are awake to these symptoms. And then also, you know, because now children will start schooling around that time, it's teachers and who would pick up these signs. Now, the key challenge of autism, if you were to think about the way in which our mind functions as a house with multiple entrances, right? Multiple doors, which are entrances, and then only one exit. Right? Because you look at the face, right? All the things on our face are for intake. Eye, nose, ears, you know, we're built to receive stimuli, receive information, right? The point of the brain is to develop the networks that allow us to put all this sensory input together and generate an output which is which will fit societally. Right. Now, so if you can imagine this house with multiple entrances, multiple entrances, but has just one exit. And the whole point of making this house relevant to society is to develop pathways between the entrances so that you have a sensible exit at the end, right? The challenge of autism is that these pathways just don't get developed
so they're
as
blocked
quickly as they should be, right? So it's called a spectrum because the way in which it manifests has a long, you know, it's not a linear thing. It's like a color wheel. So you have all kinds of symptoms that can, and you know, in our parents' story, it was to do with speech initially. That was right, and then the repetitive movements, right, and the fact that the daughter started losing vocabulary. Now, autism can spread all the way from people who are completely nonverbal to people who speak fluently, right? And the key thing to managing autism would then be to guide the experience of the person so that these pathways, right, from the entrance to the exit that have been, you know, underdeveloped are slowly put in place.
So when you say they don't develop, the pathways don't develop as fast as they can, that seems to suggest that you can work with therapy with an individual and try to build the capacity or to free the pathways a little bit more so they're all heading towards that exit and you get the free flow of information that you need to go out through the exit. But it is still not a curable condition.
Exactly, because the only way to get into the house to make an impact on the pathways is to also get in, right? So we have no other tools to help with autism apart from the child or the person's way of intaking information, right? And that is why all the interventions tend to be social behavioral interventions, right? Because the behavioral is just using, you know, the input to sort of now, you know, modulate the pathways and find out how we can make the persons, because ultimately we want the person to be relevant to society. The only reason why these disorders are picked up is because somebody at one point realizes that the interaction with society has a problem.
And that's where the awareness is everything, and
Exactly.
why World Autism Awareness Day is so important, because as you said, it depends on pediatricians, it
Right.
depends on teaching assistants, probably kindergarten teachers or preschool teachers,
Right.
as well as parents, family, everybody to think, a bit like that Peace Corps worker who came to UAC for. This is something, and yes, children all have their quirks. Well, all individuals have their quirks, really. Some of us are still working on ours. But this is something that is manifesting a pattern of behavior that you think is problematic. Now, Dr. Teddy was saying this is not a curable condition, but we know that it is something that responds to early treatment, like a lot of health conditions or problems that people have. So in the case of Nanaya, how early was it in her development along the spectrum that you were able to get here in Ghana the kind of very highly specialized interventions that it takes to support children living with autism?
I would say when she started attending our 2, which is a center meant for, children with autism. Yeah, that was when she started having, I would say, impactful intervention. Yeah.
But did you seek the help, for example, of a family doctor, a physician, or anybody like that before then?
Yeah, we, when the speech, she started losing her vocabulary, and we said we got worried. Initially, we went to a hospital, I don't want to mention the name, and to meet the pediatrician. And they told us, oh, it is just a delay speech, so we should enroll her in mainstream school, and as she interacts with the children, the speech will come. Yeah.
Actually, from doing that, from putting her into a mainstream school, always seems like a great idea. Mainstream, normalize the idea of whatever ailment it is a child has. What did going into mainstream schooling do for or to Nanaya?
She was hyperactive in addition to the signs that I was talking about, and it looks like the schools were unable to manage her.
Did they treat her as a problem child?
Something of that sort.
And again, that compounds the problem and why awareness is so important.
Exactly.
So you may have a child with a highly specialized need that needs quite specific treatment, and you have society, again, as you were saying, Dr. Teddy, it's all about the child fitting into society or being socially useful, quote unquote, and society not understanding and actually aggravating the condition by treating you as a problem. I think the experts often say that often children show the symptoms or some of the symptoms of autism in their first year, but it can extend. So, as you said, Nanaya had started acquiring vocabulary as expected, but what you noticed was actually that she'd acquired the vocabulary, but then regressed in her ability to express herself. So it is a hugely wide spectrum of disorders. Sometimes, Dr. Teddy, I understand autism is actually accompanied by certain physical ailments which compound the situation. In the case of somebody who has specific not only neurodevelopmental disorders that affect their behavior or their interaction with society, but also physical conditions, again, what is the sort of care that is available in Ghana at the moment?
So a very esteemed writer who is also an autistic person described it in a very interesting way that is very striking for me. She said, and because of these links and pathways that had not been formed, when it was time for her to interact with the world, she interacted with the world as if she was an anthropologist on Mars. Right? You know, that was how.
What a poetic description.
Exactly.
I thought you were going to say like it was like talking through wool or
Right.
through a pane of
No,
glass. No, like an
because-
anthropologist
yes,
on Mars.
On Mars,
with no
she-
people.
no people,
Yeah.
no history, nothing. But her motor output was just what that was. And intervening with that is going back to understanding that and what our daddy here says was that he noted that eye closing and ear closing, it's just the person's response to sensory overload.
Yeah.
Right? The eyes are the key ways of getting things in. The ears are the key ways of getting things in. So it's not as much a sensitivity as it is you don't have the pathways to deal with all that information. So you block it out.
It's like a barrage of stuff hitting at you, and you just
Exactly.
can't cope
Right.
with the weight.
Which is where mainstream schooling, can make it worse because we do nothing. So the thing is to, first of all, tone down on the sensory input and then have a way in which the person can interact with society in a structured, predictable way. We surgeons are known as slaves of ritual. We want the same room, the same instruments, the same table,
Laid out the
same
same
stuff,
way, yeah.
because it protects the procedure.
Yeah.
Right? If you have a ritual, then as soon as something is wrong, you spot it. Right? This is all that autistic people need. And actually, all of us need some kind of structure. It makes us more, useful, basically. Right? And so we must understand, some of us can take sensory overload, like we go to Woolly Falls and we can take all that in.
With the people shouting in the
Right.
background and the
Some
sun.
can only take from a tap in terms of and running very slowly. And that's the whole point of the spectrum, right? So the key thing is identifying the fact that it is happening and then having the personnel that can actually look at sensory and motor outputs. Right? So getting a way in which to guide the child to the kind of sensory inputs that he or she can deal with, and then making a set of structure for his or her motor outputs that makes her not feel like an anthropologist on Mars.
Not excluded from the activity going on in the world around them.
Right.
Isiama Kuffour, if I could ask you very briefly, again in relation to your own experience of autism, because on World Autism Awareness Day, one of the things that campaigners work towards is the creation of environments that are more supportive towards people living with autism spectrum disorder. Now, presumably you can control the environment within the house and really structure it exactly as best supports Nanaya, but she now goes out to work. One of the things that's been spoken about for World Autism Awareness Day today is the idea of an autism-friendly city. What would an autism-friendly city or society or workplace for Nanaya be like?
Thank you. Just as Doctor said, that there are certain sensory inputs that they find it, or should I say, they process those sensory inputs differently from ours. So for them, our world is too bright, and that is why they would want to close their eyes. It will mean that at the workplace, you may have to dim the light a little bit for the child. And if there's she's working in an environment where there's too much noise, which is one of the things they perceive our world to be. Our world is too noisy, and that is why they would want to block. Yeah. So then you have to use noise cancellation gadgets
Right.
We have noise cancellation gadgets that the child will wear,
Right.
and any noise that is coming around
In the environment can be muted.
Yeah.
Essentially like headphones
It's like,
blocking
headphones,
out the level of noise.
Exactly.
But Nanaya is now a flourishing young woman. How old is she?
She will be 22 this month, the 17th.
The 17th of
Yeah.
April. We're going to be celebrating with her. I know we're going to be celebrating with her, but we are so grateful to you for coming in and talking about your own experience with your daughter and showing people that, yes, there's a good life to be had with autism spectrum disorder, with the right support systems, and most importantly, with the right awareness of everybody around the person. So yes, everybody out there, your chance to go off, read a little bit more about autism. You know, read some stories about lives of people who have lived with autism spectrum disorder and how they have found their own way in the world. All I can say, as I said to your wife when she came in, she's an impossibly beautiful young woman with impeccable taste in handbags and shoes. If you want to find out more about Nanaya's adventures, you can find out by seeing many videos of her on social media. She is a bit of a media superstar. Nanaya's World, I think, is probably what you could probably use as a Google search term to find out more about her. And before we know it, we're here at the end of the Asaase Breakfast Show. Real shame, because I really wanted to continue that conversation with Isiama Kufuor, father of Nanaya, and Dr. Teddy Tutime, but who knows, we'll be able to continue on another occasion. Before we go, though, quick birthday message, which we missed earlier on, and I know I will get my wrist slapped if I don't mention this. Professor Kenneth Ajiman Atifa wants to say, happy birthday, my dear wife and friend Joyce. I'm bursting with utmost love and respect as I struggle to find the right words to express just how deeply lucky I feel to be by your side on this, your special day, your 50-something birthday. And it's a very, very happy birthday to Joyce Adra Eria. I won't try to pronounce what the Akan word that Atifa uses to describe you, but let's just say that it's very flattering, and he says you're an incredible support to him, and you've just been a light in his life for the past 28 years. Happy birthday to you. And with that, it's the end of the Asaase Breakfast Show. Coming up in a moment, the news update, which will be followed by Asaase Cafe. Keep on enjoying all the programs we're bringing to you on 99.5, 98.5, 99.7 in Tamale, and 100.3 in Cape Coast. The 98.5, of course, being Kumasi. I didn't mention that earlier on. Excuse me. Have a good morning, whatever you get up to. Enjoy the day and stay sweet.
Thank you for watching. Like, comment, share, and subscribe.